What's up, folks? Erik the Viking back again. Yeah, I've got work later today again in the evening. Hope everyone's cool. Over here in England, it is lovely and sunny. The weather will not make its mind up. It's snowing one minute and sunny the next. It is like summer out there. It's ridiculous. But I'm not complaining. I love hot weather. I'm guessing you can tell by the music in the background and also by the title of the video that I'd like to talk to you all today about Funkadelic, one of the craziest bands or outfits or organisations or collectives or whatever you want to call it ever. Just insane. I first heard Funkadelic, I read about many times in sort of Mojo magazine and things like that, and I thought, oh, they look pretty cool. So I was already into James Brown and Sly Stone. And yeah, I just heard them in college, stoned out of my brain and completely flipped out, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And it all started from there, really. Changed my mind, just changed my life in a way. It just completely, I was hooked on them for ages. I listened to nothing else but Funkadelic for a while. And also Parliament, of course, which I'll talk about in another video. I was quite lucky to see George Clinton and his gang. I think they're called the P-Funk All-Stars now. Saw them last year in London. They were incredible, just insane. Still really good live. I highly recommend them. Great bunch of musicians he's got. He had some of the early. I think he had Billy Bass Nelson there, who was the original bassist, and a few other people. But George just looked insane. He was dressed in a sort of blue Sergeant Pepper style uniform. It was mad, and what surprised me even more was that they were all smoking spliffs on stage, because over here there's the smoking ban and it was an indoor venue. They must have had to pay quite a lot of money to do that, but it was just a great gig, a really good gig. Anyway, so I thought I'd show you the Funkadelic records I have. I think I have most of them. I think I've got all the albums. I'll show you now anyway. Talk a little bit about them. I can't get my words out properly today, I have no idea why. Anyway, I've got a couple of singles I'd like to show you. They're all English pressings. Basically, when Funkadelic first came out over here, they were on the Pi label, of all things. These are incredibly rare now, especially the albums on Pi. I mean, because no one bought them. You can find the singles now and then. And of course, this is off the first album with a brilliant B-side, which was not on an album, Fish, Chips and Sweat. How can you go wrong with a title like that? Just a great track, great single. Yeah, it's taken me a while to get one of these. I've had this quite a few years now, but when they do turn up, they're not too expensive. The next one I've got is also on Pi. You and Your Folks, Me and My Folks, which interestingly was on Maggot Brain, which wasn't on Pi over here, it was on the Janus label, so it's almost like a crossover, with of course the brilliant Funky Dollar Bill on the B-side, which was on Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow, and this is a beautiful copy. I'd say this one's a little bit harder to get than the first one, really nice. And I'd say this one's probably the rarest. I've only got like 3 Funkadelic singles. Yeah, this is the UK pressing of Can You Get To That on the Janus label. Maggot Brain English pressings on the Janus label are near extinct. I've never actually held one in my hands. They're just really hard to find. But to me, they're not as desirable because it's not even a gatefold sleeve. So the UK pressings are much in demand, but I think the American ones are the ones you want really, because you've got the better sleeves and everything. But again, that's a lovely single. And now, my personal favourite, first album. We're listening to Mummy What's the Funkadelic, which is the first track on this. I mean, this is just the coolest cover. I mean, look at that, I've got that on a t-shirt, which I've had, it's probably one of my oldest t-shirts, I still wear it all the time. Yeah, just a great album. This is the first American pressing on the beautiful psychedelic Westbound label. Really nice. I mean, even these are getting hard to find now. This is a nice copy. I picked this up quite a few years ago. Yeah, so that's that. This is probably the rarest one I own. This is the Pi English pie pressing of Free Your Mind and Your Arse Will Follow. But if anyone has an original westbound pressing in nice condition, that's the tricky part. With the gatefold sleeve, I'd be interested in that. Then I'd probably get rid of this because I'm sort of trying to limit myself to one of each instead of getting all these different pressings. But this is a really nice example, and it sounds great. The UK pressings are very nice. But like I said, I'd love the gatefold sleeve with the photo of them, because they were just the coolest looking band ever, in my opinion. Them and the Mothers, as we mentioned, were like the coolest looking bands. So that's that. Brilliant album, of course. Next up, Maggot Brain. This is the American original pressing. I mean, of course, this is a masterpiece. This is a highly rated album, not my personal favourite, but it's still great. And this album's worth it just for that picture. They were just, look at them. If you want to see that down an alley, there's George Clinton there, with the shaved head. Eddie Hazel's the one with the afro on the other side. Brilliant. And of course, this is a nice early westbound one too. The later pressings were on blue labels, so they're slightly different. But I mean, these albums are just, you know, when I first started buying them, they were a bit easier to get, but the last few years they have really got hard to find. Yeah, but that's a nice copy. It's taken me a while to find one of those, but I got one. Next up, another great album, America Eats Its Young, with the brilliant Dollar Bill spoof cover. Unfortunately, I don't have a poster. The poster's very rare. This is another new phase of their discography, really. You know, sort of. It's just a great album. Again, some of the lovely labels there. I love this album. I think this is often overlooked. It's just brilliant, and I think it's the first album with Bootsy and Catfish on it as well. Brilliant. Next up, got Cosmic Slop, and this is when we start seeing Pedro Bell's artwork come into play. Absolutely amazing artist. One of my favourite album design artists ever. I think he only did stuff for Clinton and Co. really. This is a second pressing. It's still an old one, but it's one of the blue label ones, which was done by 20th Century Records. It's still on westbound. But I would like a nice original. This is getting tough to find now. That's that. Standing on the Verge of Getting It On was next. Another superb album, of course. There's not really one Funkadelic album I don't like anyway. And this is when you start seeing the famous logo being used. I think the album before they were using it as well. I mean, just look at that. It's just incredible. Really crazy stuff. And this is a nice first pressing. There you go. This is just great. Another excellent one, Let's Take It to the Stage. Pedro Bell, once he was doing stuff for them, that was it. There was no holding him back. He was there to stay. I think they did have an exhibition in London a few years ago of all his artwork. I was gutted I didn't go to it. I don't know why I didn't actually. But yeah, that's beautiful. Tales of Kid Funkadelic. The last one they did on Westbound. Again, another superb album. And I think it's the first album with Kid Funkadelic, Michael Hampton on it. Brilliant. You can see all the craziness going on there. It's like some psychedelic nightmare. Awesome. The first album they did for Warner Brothers was Hardcore Jollies. This is the English pressing. It says 1978, but I'm sure this album came out in 76 or 77 in the States. I could be wrong. It was definitely recorded earlier than 78. It's another really underrated album. It's got some great tracks. You Scared the Loving Out of Me, Soulmate, the live version of Cosmic Slop, which I think is better than the studio one. This is brilliant. And this is the last album with Glenn Goins on it, who was brilliant, and he died really young of lymphoma, I think. Not long after this album was finished. Really tragic. He was brilliant. One Nation Under a Groove, of course, legendary album, also their most common because it was quite a big hit. Brilliant. And this has also got the 12-inch single of which came with some copies. Free 12-inch of One Nation Under Approved. I think in America it had a free 7-inch instead of a 12 with the same tracks on it. Yeah, I'm sure it did. So that's a nice one. Another great cover. Uncle Jam Wants You. Proof that George Clinton was one of the coolest dudes out there. Still is, really. More crazy Pedro Bell artwork. This is I'd say this is one of the weaker albums. There's a couple of tracks. So it's not bad, but it has got Freak of the Week and Not Just Knee Deep, which are two of their best tracks from this period, really. But the second half is a bit weak, I think. Maybe I should listen to it again. And last but not least, we have the Electric Spanking of War Babies, which was their last the last album by the original sort of troupe. This album's insane. Sly Stone's on it as well, and I think it's actually one of the last things Sly Stone has recorded to date. 1982 this came out, and you can see this. That was the original artwork, which Warner Brothers said no to, and they somehow got away with putting it on the inside. And I know you can't see here, but the detail on this sleeve is incredible. All little comic strips and things. I mean, these are just if you ever see, a copy cheap with a shitty record, just buy it, because it's good enough for the sleeve, really. Just look at the sleeve for ages. And this also has the inner sleeve, which has got loads of statistics and awards, like to people they knew, like who got the best scores on Pac-Man and things like that. Just ridiculous. And this was the last album, so yeah, I know I haven't really spoken much about the albums musically, but I'd recommend all of their albums, really. I'd start with the first album, which you're hearing now, and work through it chronologically. That's how I did it. That is the best way to do it, I think. But there's not one really bad album. They're just brilliant. I haven't heard much of the more recent stuff. I've heard some of George Clinton's solo stuff from the 80s, which is pretty good, pretty out there, sort of 80s funk, quite in the vein of Prince, but a bit more insane. It's worth checking out. Yeah, awesome stuff. I'm going to be showing you some Parliament next. Stay tuned.